You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Miles Teddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packers fans, just love talking about the Pack. We're not getting into all the national sports media distractions and nonsense they get into. We are diving into the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games during the season, and sorting through all the drama and the rumors and the draft, and now the just brutal parts of the off season. If y'all want to support the podcast, please spike that like button for us. Give us a follow on all those socials. Most importantly, head on over to the Packers Talk Network YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the little bell next to it for the bonus points, man. That does a great deal of help to us. We greatly appreciate it. Love all you subscribers and listeners joining us every Monday night here, 9:30, maybe 9:35, little buffer room. Tim and I got to catch up sometimes before we jump in here, but glad to have y'all with us. And tonight, we got some things to talk about. We got a schedule to get to. We haven't gotten to pick apart the schedule yet. And I think there's some other things that are worth bringing back up that we haven't really talked about yet this offseason. So join us, strap in, have some fun. We're going to talk some Pack. But first, we got some business to take care of. Our show is once again sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans, as well as Bucks, Brewers, and Summerfest tickets. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. Remember to support those local Wisconsin businesses. And of course, if you're not in Wisconsin, support your local businesses. Tim, sir, good evening. How we doing?
Good evening. Doing good. Looking forward to talking about the schedule because it gives us that schedule to look forward to because it feels like it's a long way off until we get the actual football. And I don't know. It hit me a lot sooner this year than I think it has in the recent past. Like really missing it.
Yeah.
It's
starting to get boring in the offseason now. I find myself watching UFL a little bit more intently than I probably should be.
That's not good. Can we start the countdown to training camp? It's just
Maybe
I don't know.
I don't know how many days that is. What is it, about 2 months? 3 months?
Yeah, it feels like forever. Sometimes you get that off season, you get through free agency and the draft, and you're kind of like, okay, it's summertime. I could kind of use quieter time. It's okay. We'll get the Packers football. But I feel like this year it's hit me really, really early. Like training camp's a long way off and a couple months, more than that, I guess. And yeah, I'm missing it. So it's nice to have a schedule to look forward to. It's almost like one of those yeah, you got the schedule, but you got to wait till September to actually start seeing it take place and happen. So, yeah, I guess I'm missing football. I'm missing the Packers and, missing the real action. I don't have anything.
If you think about it, I think now to the season is actually shorter from, what was it, like kind of the beginning of the offseason to the draft. And that flew by, to be honest. That went pretty fast.
That's true. And it'll go fast. But still, it's, you want it to get here.
Yeah.
And, it's something we really look forward to. And now we know, we already knew who they were going to play. We just didn't know when.
Right.
Now
which
we know
does
when.
Make a difference.
And it does. Yeah. Now there's a lot of anticipation for it. And the team's pretty much set. I mean, there may be some changes here and there. There may be some guys staying now. And you never know. Maybe they add some people. But, yeah, it'll be, it's going to be interesting to get the feedback from what's going on at OTAs and mini camp, but the real stuff doesn't really start until training camp, and that's a couple months away.
True. I think we'll find some stuff to sink our teeth into with OTAs and mini camp. We always do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the real stuff, it's still further out. But that's all right. If you're feeling that way, Tim, I'm sharing that with you, and I bet there's some other Packers fans that feel the same. So let's all just kind of, have a little campfire tonight. We're going to huddle around the campfire and just talk about our Packers stuff. It's just stuff we want to talk about, and we're going to get to that season together. But so the schedule, what are your first impressions here? We don't need to, go game by game yet. We can maybe do a little bit of that later on. But, what's just your first taste?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to like pick apart about it. It's a tough schedule for sure. There's some interesting things how it's set up. I don't like the early buy. That was the one that really caught my attention. Was like that's an early buy. But then people were pointing out online the Eagles had a week 5 buy last year and it worked out fine for them. So I would prefer to have it middle part of the season or even later. But they do have a Thanksgiving game that's later in the year that'll give them a little bit of like the mini buy coming off of that. That's one thing that stuck out. And then there's some like little weird nuances of the schedule. They open with the Lions at home, divisional game. That's really cool. We can talk about that. But then they don't play another divisional game again until week 12. Like that's a long stretch without playing divisional games. That's, over 2 months. And then all of a sudden they play, I think 4 of them in 5 weeks.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it's like one after. They got the Bears 2 out of 3 weeks. It's crazy. So like they go all that, 2+ months without having a divisional game, and then you're going to try to like get them all in at the end of the season. So that's interesting, and that's gonna make or break their season. Is that stretch late in the year playing all the divisional games? You got the Ravens in there as well. You got the Broncos, who that's going to be a tough game for them on the road in Denver. But I think there's 2 ways to look at it. You can say, well, there's a lot of road games late in the year, and there's a lot of tough games late in the year. But that can also help you going. Like if you're able to get through that and play good football, that makes you better and builds your team going into the playoffs. So. I think in the past I would have been really not looking forward to that stretch, late in the year. But now I'm kind of like, you know what? If you want to be a good team, you got to beat good teams. You got to beat good teams on the road. Like that's the way. Good. Like get through those games, and you're going to be better going into the playoffs. So that's what stuck out to me. Is just like that big wide gap of not having divisional games, and then you all get thrown at them late in the year. And, I think it's 4 out of 6 games at the end of the season are on the road, which is tough. They start 2 home games in a row. First home game for LaFleur, first season opener, week 1 home game for LaFleur.
That's exciting.
But then you kind of pay it on the back end by going on the road a lot. But again, if you want to be a good team, you can't complain about that. That should make you stronger and make you better going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, my thoughts were very mixed. There's things to be happy about, things to be maybe not as happy about. There's definitely a couple things in here I'm looking forward to. I don't know how much I like the whole going against the Bears 2 out of 3 weeks. That's one that I'm like, I don't know how I'm okay with that. I kind of like it when we have like a first half matchup and a second half matchup.
That's how
2 out of 3 weeks thing. I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah, that was weird. They usually like to spread those out for TV because they always get, it seems like almost every year, one of those Bears games is on at prime time or it's, the late afternoon national kickoff game. Like, and they usually like to spread them out, but you're right. Yeah. 2 out of 3 weeks. That was weird seeing that.
I don't like it. Not a fan of that at all. We'll see how it plays out. It's not that I, worry about the Packers losing, like I have an increased worry because of that. I don't like that. I like it when you have almost 2 versions of the teams going against each other. Like recently there's been that first half of the season matchup and that second half, they're like really the end of season matchup where, the first half matchup, like the team is just totally different than it is at the end of the season. Whereas with this, it's like, you're playing each other twice in the same month. And I don't know. I don't like it. It'll be what it'll be. It's always a great matchup with the Bears. The Bears still suck. So there's always that. But yeah, that was one of the things that stood out to me. I mean, I like the opponents. I like the general opponent draw that the Packers have this season. It looks like it's a lot of good games, some winnable games, some tough games. But yeah, you don't want a patty cake schedule and then go into the playoffs and then have to like play real football. So I like the way that they finished the season. Even Denver, I think, is going to be a tough game. Mm-hmm. There's really not a week off in that second half of the season. I mean, not to say week off, but like, less than tough matchup. Maybe like the Panthers and the Giants are your last 2 that you're not really, too worried about. And then, yeah, from there out, it's a gauntlet.
Yeah, yeah, getting the AFC North and the NFC East, that's tough. But it also like if you're looking at this from kind of like matchups, like there's some pretty cool matchups. You know, Packers, Cowboys, Packers, Eagles, Packers, Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, and
Steelers, yeah.
who their quarterback's going to be. Like last year, we were getting the Colts and the Jaguars and the Titans, and there's not a whole lot of excitement with those teams. Like these are pretty damn good matchups. You know, we'll see, and who the hell knows what these teams are going to be, especially when you look the second half of the season. Nobody knows. Like you know, that Ravens game looks really tough, and the Denver game looks tough, and all but who knows what the teams are going to be? That's so far off. That's why I think early in the year you kind of have an idea what you think the teams are going to be. So that's the part to really focus on. But I just think overall, like the divisions they drew it's going to give you some cool matchups.
Yeah, no doubt about that. The matchups are solid, and you know what? Going into the playoffs, if you're going into the playoffs, you're tested. Like you're ready for it at that point. Hopefully you're healthy.
Yeah.
But you know, there's no question. And we say that, and you mentioned it. You have a general idea of what the teams will be. There's always surprises every year.
Absolutely.
You know, so there will be probably some matchups in here that you thought were going to be tough that end up not being tough, and vice versa. But yeah, there's a lot of things to chew on. Eventually, we'll do the game by game. We'll just go week by week, and we can talk a little bit about what we think the matchup looks like. Let's grab some comments real quick. We got our showers jumping in with us. You guys are young, but the NFL Europe was great. Them not having a piece of a system like that is dumb. Listen, I may be a young man, but I did get to enjoy NFL Europe, and I was upset when they got rid of it. I didn't understand it. I'm sure there was some justification for it, but I'm with you, man. We need another NFL Europe. And UFL is almost scratching that itch. You're seeing some familiar faces. You know, Jay Stoneburner. I think you guys know Jace, our boy Jace from A&M. He's out there rocking and rolling. What is it? I can't remember the team that he's on, but anyway, he's out there. He's playing very well for his team, the UFL. So there's some familiar faces out there to watch, and it's football. It's live football. There's some familiar coaches out there too, so it's kind of fun. I don't know if UFL is as good as NFL Europe. That might have to be like a fun, like true deep off-season thing to get into. Nothing screams off-season more like a debate about what was better, NFL Europe or UFL.
I think there's going to be enough Packer fans, but we're not going to get to that, hopefully. So
hopefully not.
Enough Packers news, I mean. But
right.
Wouldn't it make sense, though, like for them to have an NFL Europe with all these international games over there?
That's I'm sitting here thinking, like, why did you get rid of that? And then you're like, hey, we really want to invest in Europe.
Right.
You were there.
Go back and do that in the off season, then you can have the international. Maybe you get some, build up.
They gave you Kurt Warner, wasn't it? Is Kurt Warner probably like
Kurt
the
Warner
marquee?
Was over there? Yeah, I know there were a few more. I don't remember exact, but Kurt Warner was one. I think Jake. Yeah, wasn't Jake Delhomme?
Jake Delhomme. Yeah. And then I want to say there was a kicker. Was it Vinatieri maybe that was in Europe for a minute?
Maybe.
Somebody, there was a kicker or somebody. Yeah. So, I mean, Europe came, it produced. And UFL, I'm sure, will eventually produce. But Michael Coover, hey, you got a point here, Michael. I'm with you. Dude, the weather just started getting good. Knock it off. I love the Packers, but with that comes the cold weather.
I agree with that.
I hear that. Dude, do I hear that. Now,
I get it, but I still miss it.
I'm a Texan, all right? So I'm traipsing into my, kind of like bad season with the heat coming on. So, when football season rolls around, I get fall back. I'm looking forward to that. But I remember being up in Wisconsin. I remember being up in Chicago. And I remember September coming around and just like, oh, no, I'm not done. I'm not done. Don't take it from me. And the warm weather goes away. And you get those long, cloudy 50-degree days for weeks on end. Just, ugh. I'm with you, Michael. I hear you. Enjoy your warm weather, man. But yeah, I think that could be kind of a fun debate though about NFL Europe and UFL. We might have to get some more knowledgeable folks. I haven't watched a lot of UFL. I did watch a decent amount of NFL Europe. I was a kid, but I loved football, and I felt then the way I feel now. Like give me Division II matchups. I'll go watch those if I have to. I don't care. I don't know. Do you feel the same way? Can you just watch any brand of football?
I haven't watched the UFL. I
Okay.
haven't watched a second of it. I can't. I got to draw the line
Tim's
somewhere,
not
and that's
there.
no. I'm not. I mean, good for those guys trying to get another chance at getting to a training camp, and I'm all for that stuff and developing those guys. Like that's cool and all, but no, I can't. I did back in the day as a kid. I do remember watching some NFL Europe. Frankfurt Galaxy, wasn't that one of the teams?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Galaxy was
Don't
good.
ask me any other teams, but that one for some reason I remember. But no, I'm not a UFL watcher or fan of it. But yeah, I can't get there.
I've gotten there. I'm there. I can't say that I'm a fan of any team. Now, we've got an Arlington team here in the DFW area. They play at the old Ranger Stadium. I think Bob Stoops is the coach.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm almost gravitating towards that. Like, hey, I might have a team that I could root for here. But really, it's just, football's on. And, I'd rather watch football than not football. So that's where I end up. Now, I will say also, being here in DFW, the Stars are playing
Yeah,
very
there you
well,
go.
headed to the Western Conference Finals. So that's going to be fun
There
to
you go.
watch.
I can talk hockey with you. I can't talk UFL.
We might have to stash a hockey segment at the end of this podcast, but no, I'm with R on the point though. Like, have like a feeder system, have something where these guys are getting reps. That's why I like the UFL the most. Is you just never know when guys get reps what they can do after that. And some guys, all they need is a chance. That's why we love this game of football. You see these crazy stories, crazy things happening, and so yeah. So let's see here. Take a couple more of the comments. Are with us again. Oh, here we go. A little schedule related comment. The game after any Ravens or Philly game is going to be rough on anyone. The schedule is very difficult. Yeah, I agree. It's a difficult schedule.
Sure.
Totally.
It is. I agree, but
you need it.
So be it. Like that's the teams are supposed to play or that they're scheduled to play. Like there's nothing you can do about it. It is tough. But we also don't know how these teams are going to be. And we could be looking at it and like, yeah, Baltimore's going to be good or Philly's going to be good or, Lions or injuries happen. Things happen. Teams don't meet expectations. You don't truly know what these teams are going to be until you actually play the games. And we, talk about Carolina or the Giants are on there like, oh, yeah, those are W. Like, you don't know
they end
that.
up good. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's the NFL. It's not for long. And any given Sunday, and it's true, we see upsets all the time. We see teams come out of nowhere and be better than we thought. And we see teams that we thought were going to be good that aren't. So let it play out. Like, I don't worry about it too much. Yeah, it's difficult. But a lot of other teams, including look at the Lions schedule. That's tough. Vikings got a tough schedule. So those are the teams you're battling in your division. It's tough, but if you want to be a good team, like you're not going to get to play, Middle Tennessee State every week or the Citadel and stuff. Like you don't get to schedule your teams like that. You got to beat good teams to be a good team and to get where you want to be. So, yeah, they got to manage it well, and if they get through it, it's going to build them as a better team going into the playoffs.
Totally agree. There's definitely an opportunity to build that kind of, battle tested, adversity tested kind of hardness with this team by the end of the season. All right, we got another one from our buddy Matthew Tan. Good to see you, Matthew. Glad you're with us tonight, man. What do you think our record will be? I say 12-5. Appreciate you, Matthew. 12-5. I can see that. I can see 12-5. What do you think? Are you over or under 12-5, Tim?
Ooh, that's a good number. Yeah, I think they're going to be something in that 10-12 range, right? And I would probably lean more to like 11 or 12 wins. So I'm kind of right there with you. And things break their way. Yeah, definitely 12 wins for sure. Maybe 13. Who knows? But I think that's a nice spot to be. Our
friend Acme Army taking the under. Glad to have you with us, Acme. Taking 10-7 NFC North winners. So I see a little bit of probably cannibalization happening there in the NFC North, probably beating up on each other a little bit if we're winning at 10-7. But there's probably another case to be made that the NFC North is the best division in football this year. So we'll see. We'll see. Tough. I like that one. 10-7. I think that's fair. I think that there's definitely some reality to that. I probably lean more towards the 13-win season. I think I think the way this roster is shaping up, there's less and less excuses, to put it that way.
Yeah,
But
I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I would agree
yeah,
with
I
that.
think, at this point, we're a couple years removed now from the Aaron Rodgers transition. We're a couple years removed from being the youngest team in football. And then now we're 1 year removed from being the youngest team in football again. So yeah, you've gotten these guys together. The core of this team now has been together for a couple years, 2+ years. Like, now's the time. Like, yeah, you should probably have your highest expectations now and next season, depending on how you view these draft classes. But if you're in that locker room, yeah, I think it's Super Bowl or bust this year for these guys. Do you think that's realistic, or am I a year early?
That's a really good question. I I don't view it as Super Bowl or bust yet, but are they capable of that? A lot would have to break right, but I think you can say that any year for most teams is like a lot's got to break right. I don't see it yet, but I'm not saying it's like no chance. Like that
Yeah.
you're out of your mind. Like I don't see it, but talk to me in September and we'll see where they're at. It's kind of
Well, and maybe it's not even September. So I now that we're talking schedule, I saw this little factoid, fall through Twitter or X, whatever, earlier today. And this is what inspired the name of the podcast. Not all schedules are created equal. And this data, this stat is not something I had ever even considered being tracked. So when I saw it, I was rather flabbergasted at where the Packers fell on this thing. Do you know what I'm talking about? Did you happen to see this? It wasn't posted by a Packers account. It was a 49ers account, actually.
is this talking about rest days?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the rest that was it net rest days? We'll have to see how they defined it exactly. So I've got this pulled up here. Shout out to our friends at SF Data Niners. That's 9ERS. If you guys are trying to check them out on X or Twitter, appreciate you, friends, for sharing this information. But it shows NFL rest days from 2019 through 2025, and then it shows the rank of teams that have had the most versus the least. So the top of this list was rather interesting. And I'll say, if I hadn't seen the list and you asked me who would be at the top of this list, I would have said the Chiefs. Just because it seems like everything, right? Like everything's rigged for the Chiefs and whatever. And there's some questionable stuff going on with the officiating at the end of those games, but they didn't ultimately win. So that conspiracy turned to dust. But that would have been my assumption. I was wrong. Not too far off. The Chiefs are definitely towards the top of the list, but there is an anomaly at the top of this list. The Lions have had 48 rest days from 29 in their schedule from 2019 to 2025. The next highest is Dallas at 31. Like, that is such a big gap.
Yeah.
I was blown away by that. So you Lions, we're on to you guys. We're watching you guys. We're gonna see how you guys do when you don't have these nice rest days. 13 last season, or no, they've got 13 this season. Oh my goodness. Never mind. We're not gonna find out. You guys get the most rest days you've had in any season, and you've already had the most. So that's great. So the rich get richer with the rest days in the Lions. So we're on to their secret for success there. Who's at the bottom of this list, Tim?
Well, I know the Packers are down. I think, what were they, 30th, 31st, something like that?
They are at the bottom of the list. -28. Now, again, we got to figure out how this all goes with the net and everything. I don't know what makes it negative. But
I think what they're looking at is like when you play a team, how many, like, okay, if you play somebody that's coming off a Sunday game, you're coming off a Sunday game, you're playing on Sunday, that's zero because you both play the same day.
So you would have, like, if you both have the same amount, you would have net, you'd zero. You'd have zero.
So, like, for example, I'm pretty sure the Eagles game, when they play the Eagles are coming off their bye. So the Packers are going to be a net negative for rest because the Eagles are coming up. But it balanced out because when they the Packers are playing the Bengals. We're coming off a bye. The Bengals are playing. So I think this upcoming season, I saw it somewhere, might have been Andy Herman. I believe their net negative was like 2 or 3 days. Not huge.
It's -2 this season, yes.
Okay.
Not
So that's
not anything to be upset about. The Raiders, however, have a bone to pick. They have a -19. So
Wow.
Good luck to the Raiders.
And, you would think, like, so this study you're talking about is, like, I think you said since 18 or 19. Like, you would think that they're looking at that, like, okay, 1 year it could be like, okay, it just worked out that way, the schedule. But, like, they should almost, the schedule maker should be looking at it and be like, all right, these teams are really getting a lot of rest over the years. Like, we got to start dialing that back. And I guess, if the Lions have that many more net rest days than everyone else, they're either doing it that way on purpose or they're just not paying attention. They don't care. And they're looking at each season individually.
The gap is just so significant because, again, they have a net of 48 over, since 2019. And in 25, they have 13. That's the most. Yeah. They have the most rest days of any team in the league after already they've had the most for the last 5 years. So the next one is the Cowboys. And they for all of these years, they've had a positive rest number. They've not had a single negative rest number across these last years. They've got 31. So you go from 48 to 31. And then the next one is Carolina at 25. So that's kind of a gap. So it's not like it, there's this pack. I mean, the middle ground is 1, and that's number 16. That's the Rams. So it's pretty wild, the discrepancy that's allowed to happen here. And maybe this is not something that they've been tracking, but hopefully now, thank you to, again, our friends at SF Data Niners. Maybe now the league will open their eyes a little bit to this. This seems like a pretty unfair advantage. Or am I making too much of this?
No, like, I think it needs to be more evened out. Like, there's too much of a difference there. And it's one thing, like, I can't complain this season about the Packers. If they're a -2, okay, not a big deal. But, like, over time, those numbers start adding up. You would think they would look at it and be like, all right, we got to start fixing some of this. So they, we try to get everybody closer together. But it's almost like they look at each season schedule individually, and so be it, the way it works out. I don't think it, in 2025, I don't think it matters so much for the Packers, like, because they only have a couple days. But it's interesting that, like, the same kind of teams are either getting a lot of help, like the Lions, or not getting much help, like the Packers. It's hard where it's a negative for them that far down.
We'll have to bookmark this or come back to this because, like you're saying, the Packers may not be that impacted by this season, but the outliers that show up for this specific season, you've got, again, like the Raiders are at the bottom of the list for this season at -19. Then you've got the Saints at -14. You got Washington at -13. Now those three there's a gap, right? The next one is -7. So there's a gap with those three. It'll be interesting to see if they all don't do well, or maybe they all do well.
Who knows? Oh, I mean, I think the Saints are going to stink, and the Raiders.
Yeah, two of them are kind of set up to.
They're not going to be that good. Like, and the Commanders, the NFL seems to be counting on them because they have a ton of primetime games. I was surprised by how, like, I know Jaden Daniels was a sensation last year, but it's quite the leap. Like, they're putting them in a lot of big marquee games where it's almost like it was last year a fluke. But that'll be interesting to track, because those teams that have that big of a net negative difference, to see how they do. Maybe, it definitely could have a factor in it for sure.
Well, and then we'll also see what Detroit does with their, almost 2 weeks of rest over the rest of their opponents.
Yeah, and the Packers can't complain about Detroit. I mean, you get them week 1, and you're getting them week 1 where they're breaking in new coordinators.
True.
On both sides of the ball. So, like, there's the factor.
Week 1 could be rough for them, yeah.
Yeah, and it's unscouted looks for the Packers, which is tough, but I don't think they're going to change a whole lot on either side of the ball. And you're going to get them before they're in sync, most likely. I mean, maybe they hit the ground running with both coordinators. We'll see, but I think that's a good time to get them. And then you get them. Yeah, it's a short week, but it's a short week for both teams on Thanksgiving. So, I don't think you can complain about the rest factor there other than Detroit's used to playing on Thanksgiving at home. But, this is the third straight year the Packers are playing on Thanksgiving. So they're getting used to it too. So you can't, I don't think, at least from a Packers perspective, you can't complain about what Detroit got this year, but it might help them in other cases against other teams for sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Like I said, we'll put a bookmark on that. We'll come back to it and see what that looks like. But no, again, SF Data Niners, thank you guys for sharing that data. That's some interesting stuff there. All right, so while we're still cruising along on the topic of schedule, we got a few more folks getting in the comments. Our friend Bill Patz is here. Good evening, Bill. Schedule is very tough. At least Philly, Ravens, Bengals, and Commanders are at home. I agree. Those are good games to have at home. Very different if you have to go to those places. And, we haven't been – the home field advantage hasn't been as protected as it should be. But
no,
that can change any given
absolutely
season.
hasn't been. No.
This is a great season for that to change and for them to start protecting that. So, I'm optimistic about that.
Yeah, and last season, they got swept by the Lions, they got swept by the Vikings, and they got swept by the Eagles, right? So that was the big sticking point, was how they played against those teams. Well, you get those same teams. Obviously, you're going to get Vikings and Lions every year, but you get the Eagles, you get the Ravens, you get, if the Commanders are as good as they're supposed to be, maybe the Cowboys. Like, you're going to get some good teams to really test you. And last year, there were other good teams they played, but we measured them up against the Vikings, the Lions, and the Eagles, right? And they're going to get measured up against potentially more teams this year to really truly see what this team is, if they've gotten better and how good they can be. So to me, there's a lot of tough games, but that's, I don't know if there's too many easy games. And I don't even know if you truly want a schedule full of a lot of easy games, because maybe you don't truly build your team and you don't know what they are when they have to play those tougher teams.
No, I've experienced that, and again, not to ever, sound like the guy that talks about his high school glory days or anything like that. But when I played at Oshkosh, we kind of went from a transition of our non-conference when I was there as a freshman was not very good. And we started playing, the Mount Unions of the world after that. And when you go up against who is the best, you do truly learn about where you're at. When you go up against the Sisters of the Poor, you got no clue, no idea. You could look good, maybe you look good, maybe you don't. That's even worse, I guess. But, there's definitely something to it. And, there's obviously other good teams, they're not playing the Chiefs, they're not playing the Bills. But as far as the NFC goes, they're going to be tested against the NFC. So again, by the time they get to the playoffs, you should have a good idea of where you're at. And it's not to say that if you lose some of those games, can you beat those teams? Well, yeah, I mean, we've heard how hard it is to win 2-3 times against a team in the league. Usually if you play them once, you get a chance to correct and it goes differently, So yeah, I embrace the strength of schedule. I don't really particularly like the idea of having a weak schedule. So yeah, that's not what bugs me. There's other stuff about this schedule that could bug me, but not the strength of it.
Yeah, and a lot of people are mentioning the early bye, and that's my biggest complaint is that early bye. I don't like it. I also think it gives you a chance, though, to go back to what Mike McCarthy always talked about, was breaking the season down in the quarters. So they get that first quarter of the season, then a bye. Yeah. You get 3 or 4 wins there, go into your bye, and yes, it's still a long season after that. I get it, but it gives you that head start. You get out to it so that maybe if there's a game later in the season where your team's tired or beat up or something like that, and you drop it, well, at least you had gotten off to a 3-1 or 4-0 start going into your bye, and it kind of gives you a little bit of breathing room. So I think initially just look at those first 4 games and taking care of business against those teams, and hopefully going into the bye week at 3-1 or 4-0, and it can set them up for the rest of their season from there.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to look at it, man. And as I'm kind of perusing the schedule here, if you look at it in quarters, you get that bye there at the beginning of October, then you take on a little bit of a gauntlet. And yeah, second quarter, there's not a lot of relief, but it's not your hardest stretch of games. Two home, two away. Nothing too dramatic about that. But then you move into that season, and you almost get the mini bye there after Thanksgiving, going from the 27th and not playing another game until the 7th. So, there's a little opportunity there to get rested up before that crucial stretch where you're playing the Bears twice. You got the Vikings you're finishing with, and the Broncos and Ravens in between. It's a pretty tough stretch. So at least you get a little bit of a breather before going on that final stretch there. And the last 3 games, at least the way I'm showing it, maybe this has been updated somewhere else, are TBD. Is that still true?
The last 2 games, yeah. So they're either be Saturdays or Sundays against the Ravens and
Right.
on the road against the Vikings.
So, you might gain a day here or there by the luck of the draw. I'm sure there's probably some primetime flexibility there.
Yeah.
Each of those games has primetime potential, so that would make sense. But yeah, so definitely an interesting stretch. As far as the worst part about the schedule, in my opinion, it's that playing the Bears 2 out of 3 weeks. I just don't like it. It bugs the crap out of me. I see that and I'm like, ugh, I don't like that. I want that spread out. I don't like it. So for whatever that's worth, I don't know why. I can't even give a good explanation, but I don't like it. That's the worst part of the schedule to me. I won't say it's the bye week. That's probably the pretty standard answer. What do you think, man? What's your worst part? The worst part for you?
I'll say the bye week. I don't like the early bye week, but the other non-bye week related, I just think it's weird there's such a big gap from the beginning of the season till the middle of the season where they play a divisional team. And then they kind of get them all at once.
Yeah.
So I like to have them a little more spread out from there. But yeah, besides the bye week, that would be my point. And I'm with you with the Bears thing. I think that's really weird to play them 2 out of 3 weeks. It's one of your rivals. You let's spread them out a little bit.
Yeah.
2 out of 3. It's like you can't even. I mean, we'll get hyped up for it and all, but
for sure.
I wouldn't like to play any team 2 out of 3 like that. I guess you want some kind of build up for it. You want some kind of newness for it. It might feel like the same game twice in 3 weeks. So
yeah, that's what I
I'm
don't like about it. I want to see team development between those matchups, but
yeah,
we get what we get. It is what it is. And let's see here. We can grab a couple comments before we talk about our favorite part of the schedule here. Always worth shouting out here. Our friend Matthew Tan says his friend Carly is expecting a baby girl. That's awesome. She told me she's going to raise her to be a Packers fan. Of course. Always good to welcome a new Packers fan into the world. So congratulations to you, Carly. And that's very, very exciting. Let's see here. Coming on down. Bill says our bye week sucks. And last 3 out of 4 on the road negates our cold weather advantage. Maybe not, because, again, that's at Soldier Field. So that's kind of we're both cold weather teams. We'll just see who's got a little bit more toughness. I love that game. At Baltimore could be cold. That could be a tough, chilly, maybe a snowy game.
That's at Denver. At Denver.
Oh, I was looking at the last 3 games, but yeah, even at Denver could be a cold one.
I'm sorry, Baltimore's at home.
Oh yeah, excuse me. Right, you're right. Yeah. So yes, no, I mean there's Denver could be cold, Chicago could be cold, Ravens at home, and then you finish with the Vikings in their weak little dome of theirs. Sissies. Yeah, but this team is built for speed, so it also could play to your advantage.
Yeah, I mean I don't like all those road games at the end, and that's kind of what you're paying the price for getting the 2 early season home games right off the bat. So yeah, I hear you. The cold weather advantage thing I think is overblown anymore with it. If you get the right team, if you get the Dolphins coming up or something late in the year, sure, but you don't get a whole lot of that anymore. And I've seen them lose playoff games at home to the Bucks, to the 49ers. Cold weather didn't really help them in those games, so I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to the team's mentality. I don't know that geographics have much
Yeah.
to do with it as much as just what's the mentality of the team. You've seen it. Some teams want nothing to do with the cold, and it's not necessarily even the Packers. You see cold games. One team is cool with it. They're in there. They're running their plan, and the other team, you can just see that they're not interested. They just want to go home. They don't want to be out there. It doesn't always happen that way, but sometimes it does. I think it has a lot more to do with the other team than it does your team, right? If you're mentally tough, then you'll play well in the cold, whether you're from California or from Green Bay. But if you're not, you won't. And, I think hopefully the Packers should be building that type of a mentality now with this team. Like, look, guys, yeah, you've been young. You've had that excuse. There's a transition away from Rodgers. Then you got the new coordinator. Okay. There's all these different transition excuses. Those are gone. You're done. You've got consistency on the offense. You got consistency on the defense. You've got depth like you haven't had. It's time. Like the next thing to build is mental toughness. Like that is what they should be working on. Hopefully they are. So we'll see. Maybe that cold weather advantage comes back. But let's see here. All right, we've talked about the worst parts of the schedule. We can take our doom and gloom away. What is your favorite part of the schedule, Tim?
I think just getting a home opener in week 1 for the first time since 2018 is pretty cool.
Against the Lions. I do love starting against the Lions.
Yeah, I like that too. I know there's, some people could be like, why can't we start against the Panthers? And I think you want to set the tone.
With a good one. Yeah.
You want to set the tone, and that's a team that beat you twice last year.
Yeah.
Like, it's payback time, right? Like, I don't think you can find out a whole lot about your team week 1 because it's a 17-week season, 17-game season. There's a long road, and that's just the start of it. But it's a nice way to get off to a good start against a team that beat you twice last year, that won the division. It's a team you got to get through, and you get them at home. You get them. We already mentioned they're brand new coordinators are breaking in. Yeah, I really like that start, and it's a tough opponent for sure, no doubt. But I think it's a good way to start. To me, it's going to tell us. It's too early to tell us a lot about the team, but it's at least going to tell us like where they are starting and how much further they have to get to be better than a team like Detroit.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think they need that. I think when we saw the LaFleur, kind of lackluster starts there for a few years, I don't know that those opponents were getting anybody excited. Obviously we saw how it went whenever they opened against the Bears at Soldier Field. That tone was different. So hopefully, hopefully that's what it takes is a game, in week 1 that you have to take seriously because it's a division opponent. Them, they know you. There's pride on the line too. And if you want to win the Super Bowl, you got to make the playoffs. You want to make the playoffs, you need to win the division. Certainly can make the playoffs without winning the division, but I don't think that there's a player in that locker room that considers that path until they have to. So, yeah, hopefully week 1 against, seemingly the best, person in the division right now, or best team in the division, right now. When you get a chance to set that tone, you start 1-0 against them. All right, well, now things are different. You guys, no sweep for you this year, Lions. You guys, I hope you enjoyed that. But right off the bat, I think is a great way to set that tone. And you do have an opportunity, like you're saying, they're new coordinators, both of them. And while they may be good, they may end up being good. That first week, man, you got a lot of stuff you got to work out, right? Like we saw how things went with the first week with Halfley. It wasn't perfect. There were some things to be excited about. There was also some things to be frustrated with. And there's no doubt the Lions will have that. So that's where I was kind of saying earlier, I think the expectations should be high, not because you necessarily got all the best players in the league, right? Like you didn't talent stack. That's not what anybody's trying to do. But, this team's been together. The core's been together. It's time for the expectations to be as high as they can be. So, all right, Bill, got a prediction from you here. He says, I predict the Pack will be 12-5 and win the division. All right, so we got 2 win the division predictions. Acme got us winning at a 10-win season. Bills got us winning the division at a 12-win season. I haven't seen any 13-win seasons yet, guys. Come on now. Don't leave me hanging on my own here. Somebody needs to one-up me. Give us a 14-win prediction. Is that out of the line? You think we can do 14 wins in this one?
I love your optimism.
I love my optimism too. No, all right. So back to favorite part of the schedule. Mine is going to be that mid-season primetime matchup at Lambeau against the Super Bowl champs. I think you had a chance to match up against them last year in the playoffs. Obviously, didn't go very well. But, hindsight's 2020. You matched up against them better than anybody else in the playoffs, including the Chiefs. So, I look forward to that next matchup to say, all right, look, you guys got that last one. No doubt about it. No excuses about it, anything like that. What does it look like now? And, it's in the middle of the season, so you will have had a chance to get some rhythm going. Figure out who's where and what works and what doesn't. That should be a very, very good litmus test of where this team is. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. I love the placement of it. I love that it's a primetime game. It's on ABC, so I'm guessing that means it's a Monday night game. Is that true?
Yes, it's Monday night.
Okay. So yeah, just that's got to be my favorite. And obviously we love the division matchups. I hate the 2 out of 3 weeks with the Bears, but always love getting those matchups in the end of the season. I'd love it if you could actually finish each NFL season with your last 3 weeks being only division matchups. I wonder if maybe there's a future point the league gets to, but that would make things interesting to me. You've always got league or division races coming down there at the those last 3 weeks. All right, so let's see here. Oh, excuse me. All right, so any other thoughts about the schedule?
No, I think we covered it all. It's, I agree with a lot of the comments we're seeing. It's going to be a tough one for sure, but I don't think you want to play a bunch of cupcakes all season because it's not going to tell you a whole lot. It's not going to strengthen your team. So play the tough teams. It makes you tougher, makes you stronger, and you can know your team a lot better. And the other thing being, don't worry about who they're playing in November and December. It's so long from now. We have no idea what those teams are going to look like. We have no idea what the Packers are going to look like. So think about week 1 against the Lions and maybe the first quarter of the season. And then from there, you got to see who's surviving, what the injuries are around the league. And
that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. So, it's tough, but embrace the toughness because you want it to build the Packers into a tough team as well. You got to get through good teams to get where you want to go.
Yeah, I agree. And, R puts it perfectly here. Who falls off this year? I vote Commanders. Vikings are likeliest. I can see Lions falling off a game or two.
Yeah.
Well, based on that rest chart, the Commanders might have a case for falling off because the opposite happens and they don't need rest. I think the Vikings will take a step back. They had a pretty surprising season last year. Leading up to the start of last season, the Vikings had a terrible stretch of luck, right? Like the one draft pick died. Like that's just that's crazy. And then I think there was some injuries, and they had a lot of bad luck around that team going on. Obviously, McCarthy injury. I was very surprised at how they played, but yeah, it would make a lot of sense for them to take a step back. McCarthy takes over as the starter. I won't sit here and talk trash about him. I'm probably in the minority that thinks that he actually could be good. I don't have a whole lot of film that I'm going to show you to support why. He just looks like a dude that probably has got it figured out. You watch him, he's winning. He's been around a lot of good coaches. He can spin the ball. You watch him do that a time or two. I just think that the coaching matters. He's with a great coach there in O'Connell who, resurrected Darnold. I mean, he had Joe Webb, who was looking like a stud for a second. So, I think McCarthy's in a good place. He could end up being a good QB. Not saying he will, but he could be. But he's still going to be in his first season starting, which very rarely goes phenomenal, right? I don't know that there's a whole lot of, first season starter quarterbacks that have just completely set the league on fire. I guess he could, but it does seem like they probably have a little bit of a rebuilding year, restock some talent, and they do have talent and still good coaches. So it's not like I don't think the Vikings will be bad, but I could see them taking a step back and maybe being more of like an 8-9 win team. We'll see. Commanders is a good vote. Jaden Daniels a little sophomore slump. That used to be standard, right, for quarterbacks. We don't talk about that anymore. Yeah, so then let's see here. The R had another comment that I liked. Oh, here we go. I know it's off topic, but I can't wait to see what happens with our O-line. Can't wait to see who emerges from that competition. So that was the other, actually a nice little segue for the other thing that I wanted to talk about. Don't forget about the reinforcements we got coming here. Like, you've basically got a draft class, a second draft class coming back in 2025 that you didn't have in 2024. So you have your rookies, your true rookies here, but guys you didn't really get to see last year: Jordan Morgan, Marshawn Lloyd, Kalen King, who's the fourth one? Oh, Jacob Monk. So there's 4 guys right there that really didn't contribute to 2024 who could in 2025. I'm still a big Jacob Monk fan. I think after the transactions of this season, he has a much tougher path to crack that lineup. I think Jenkins probably wins the center job pretty handily. I don't know if Monk is going to compete for starting reps against Banks or, the handful of guys who could compete for those right there. Maybe he will. I think Belton probably wins one of those jobs. He's such a big dude who can move. But there is great competition on the O-line that I think we did not have last season. I think we had improved competition last season on the O-line, but yeah, I'm excited now about the depth and the competition on the O-line. What do you think, man? Do you think I'm overstating these reinforcements?
So I'll just point out one reinforcement you didn't even mention was Tyron Hopper, the 3rd-round pick we barely saw.
Yeah, what do we think about this guy?
I think it says a lot that he didn't see the field as a 3rd-round pick. So we'll see. I mean, let's not give up on him yet. He should have an opportunity, hopefully, to be one of the top 3 or 4 linebackers for sure. But getting back to the offensive line, I think one of the interesting things that came out last week, they had the coordinators and the position coaches on offense do their press conferences, and I didn't even really pick up on it. But Jason Wilde wrote an article about it, and it was about Adam Stenavich talking about the offensive line and being that there's competition, which we all knew about. He mentioned left tackle, he mentioned right guard. Right, we knew. He also mentioned competition at right tackle, and he had 2 different comments, or maybe it was him and Buckus had comments, but it wasn't like a slip up or like, you're reading in, like it was, there's competition at right tackle, which is crazy if you think about it, because you have Zach Tom, right? And then if you read Wilde's article, it's great because he has quotes from Zach Tom, which I think was at the end of last season or late last season, where Zach Tom said he wasn't happy with the way he played. And it kind of went back to last offseason, he tore his pec. So he missed all the offseason. He missed the beginning of training camp. And he said he never felt like he was strong enough, and he wasn't using, I can't remember if it was his right side or his left side, but he wasn't using that to the full capability. He felt like he was getting beat on that side too much. And I think, to me at least, and I think a lot of us out there, was weird because he seemed like he had a really good season. I know he got beat bad in a playoff game once or twice by the Eagles, but it seemed like he had a really good season, right? And like we've all been assuming like they're going to pay him a ton of money to be their right tackle long term. But he felt like he didn't have a good year, and he was like looking forward to this offseason, having a healthy offseason, bulking up and thinking how much better he could be. And that's crazy. And now we have Stenavich saying, yeah, there's competition at right tackle. Like, I don't think it's legit. Like it's a questionable whether he wins the job or anything like this. I think he would have to just be awful, like be a completely different player. But just interesting that they're not like, he's the guy, and no doubt about it. We're going to have competition at left tackle and right guard. The fact that he mentioned Tom's position was just, maybe it means nothing, but at least in their eyes, like they're just not handing Zach Tom the position yet, which I think is crazy. But if Tom himself didn't think he had that good of a year, then maybe there's a little bit something to it as well. I'm sure, he's definitely going to be, barring injury or him like forgetting how to play tackle. He's going to be their week 1 starter. But go and read Wildy's article, because I thought it was kind of interesting to see how Tom felt about his season.
Well, I'll have to go back and listen to that for myself, just to kind of see if I can pick up on anything from the tone. But let me see if I can take a different angle at it. And they're always talking about their best 5, right? Is there a chance that Zach Tom is the starting left tackle?
You never know. I mean, could be. I would think, because in that case, who's the right tackle? Is it Belton?
Well, I think maybe that's more what the comment was geared towards. Is like, well, maybe there's some competition to be had at right tackle. And I think the reason I bring it up that way is because of the different skill sets you have now present on the offensive line or in that room. With Belton being such a big dude, and Jordan Morgan, where's Jordan Morgan going to play, and where is he the best? And are you okay with Rasheed Walker at left tackle? And if not, maybe it's not just as simple as moving somebody else to left tackle, as it's as simple as moving Zach Tom to left tackle. So what I have a hard time imagining is Zach Tom not being part of the best 5. That is very, very difficult for me to imagine. Even if he had a tough season last season, he was still probably their best offensive lineman, right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like much of a competition. Maybe I need to go back and look again. But before this conversation, I would have said, yeah, absolutely. He was their best offensive lineman last year. So I have a real hard time imagining he's not in that best 5. So if he is in the best 5, but Stenavich is talking about competition at right tackle, that's where I look at it like maybe they're already slotting him in a different place on that best 5. And he's talking about the competition at right tackle as a result of that. A move to left tackle for Tom, obviously there's monetary benefit there. If he believes that he can play just as well on the left side as he can on the right side, then by all means, dude, head on over. I would love that same reliability that we've had with him at right tackle or left tackle. And not to say that Walker's been bad. He just hasn't been, your surefire franchise left tackle, kind of like a Bakhtiari was. And we've been spoiled, from that perspective. But that's the way I would see it. I would see that as maybe it's a sign of him going to a different place in the line.
It could be. And I think it also could just be he's still a young guy and they don't want to get complacent with it. And they're preaching this best 5. And they want to be preaching it so that the rookies and the second-year players really, truly believe best 5. Like, I don't think he's truly in jeopardy of losing his job. And I would assume it's right tackle, but he could be right. And they could be looking at him like he might be a left tackle if Walker's not ready or Morgan can't play there or whatever. But yeah, I would be shocked if he's not the right tackle. But it was just something interesting that came out of the press conferences last week.
Well, and Bill here says, regardless of Steno's comments, why haven't we signed Tom yet? That would align, right? So if Tom's not going to stay at right tackle, and they've already talked to him about maybe going to left tackle, you're going to pay him differently. It may not be huge, but what do they talk about all the time? You're paying for what what you're going to get, not what you've gotten. Well, if you're going to get top of the league left tackle play, that's a different price tag than top of the league right tackle play. And again, it may not be a massive difference, but it would be enough of a difference for that to hold up contract talks probably. So,
yeah. And once they do pay him, there's no competition. Like they're going to be paying him a lot of money. He's a starter for several years then. But yeah, I think they should be signing him. It takes time though. right? We saw that with Jordan Love's contract last year. It takes time. So I'm hoping it's something they get done before training camp, but it could linger into the season as well. I have to imagine that's one of their top priorities is getting a contract extension
Has
done
to
with
be.
Zach Tom. Has to be.
Has to be. I mean,
He's earned it.
well, and it's not like they can deprioritize the offensive line for crying out
No.
loud. That was the thing that just got you whooped up and down the field in the last game you played. So,
And you see how much they're investing in it with Banks and
right,
a second round pick in Belton. Like they're investing more in it.
right. So that's where it's if you got that guy, you got to find a way to keep that guy. So my thought and assumption would be that is what's holding that up is deciding what are the next 4 to 5 years for Zach Tom. If it's not right tackle, if it's left tackle, then yeah, the price tag's different. So they got to figure that out. The other part of that, and this is where it may sound like coach speak, but I think it's maybe more honest than it sounds. It's truly to find a best five. You got to let these guys play at different positions. You got to rotate them around, and we've seen it with Sean Ryan, right? He's played center, he's played guard. I don't think we've seen him play tackle.
No.
But they've got to get a chance to rotate these guys around, and it may not, again, necessarily be that Tom is competing for a job as it is them seeing who could compete to be the starting right tackle to give them the flexibility to push him around somewhere else. Now, if you don't feel confident you've got that guy that maybe isn't a 100% replacement for Tom because he is one of the best in the league, but is a satisfactory replacement, then good. You can make that move. But if you don't, then you can't make that move. Leave him there and maintain stability. So I think there's some of that has to play out in the OTAs, the mini camps, and probably even in a training camp so that you can see what moves you can make. But they got a lot of pieces, and you got a lot of flexible pieces. You got to see, where does Morgan go? Where does Belton go? Where does Jenkins go? It seems like Jenkins is going to center, hopefully, but there's maybe a little bit of rumblings there. Maybe he doesn't like it. Maybe he needs to be paid differently. So there's a couple things there that need to be worked out, I think. But the biggest point of all of it is the amount of flexibility. It just seems like a totally fluid picture with all these names rotating into this position and that position, and that's a good problem to have. That's a problem I think that they've been trying to have. So what we could be confident is this competition gives you a really good best five.
Yeah, and I think it's certainly a better spot they're in this year than they were at this time last year. Just because, I mean, they were struggling through the offseason in camp. Like, that's why they had to bring in Andre Dillard, and you had Kadeem Telford, and you had Glover making the team. Like, you just didn't have that depth. We were, crossing our fingers that everybody stayed healthy, and everybody did all season until the Eagles game. And you also had Josh Myers at center, who's a below-average center, and now you've replaced him with a better player, 1-for-1 in Banks, and then a significant upgrade with Jenkins moving to Myers' old position. So I think from a depth perspective and just an overall best, what they're projected, we're thinking their starting five is, they're in a much better spot this year right now than they were at this time last year.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's one of the reasons why my optimism is increased is the depth on the O-line is real, and that is something they need. But you could also say that about, and I'm again probably in the minority on this one, about the DB position. If Jair's back and you've got Kalen King, there's some mumblings here that maybe Kalen King's not bad. Maybe he's turning into a bit of a ball player. There's depth at that cornerback position now. You don't have to have CB1 all the way through to spot 6, right? Like we're trying to do with the receivers. But if, you got, again, Jair, you got Nixon, you got Valentine, that's it's a solid top 3 there. But then King coming in and competing for reps, and you got Hobbs now. Hobbs is the one I was forgetting. So really, Hobbs is in your top 2 with Valentine, maybe top 2, 3-ish. And you've got depth there, right? Now you're at Kalen King is number 5. It is probably very best. So yeah, I'm excited to see how that room shapes up and the competition that comes out of there as well. If all of those players are in camp and competing against each other, I think that's going to be a fun room to watch. So that's why I say don't forget about the reinforcements. You know, I know a lot of people wanted to see maybe another cornerback drafted, maybe a different O lineman or, more investment in the O line, whatever it is. Just don't forget about these reinforcements we got. These guys are going to be good. Marshawn Lloyd, I think everybody's excited to see what he can do with a full healthy season. And to your point, maybe Hopper comes along and makes us think even more about the linebacker position. But hey, we got a couple months to think about it.
We sure do.
So, we'll do it together, right? One Monday at a time. We're going to inch closer to training camp. And before we know it, we're going to get there. But yeah, we'll have fun on the way. There's plenty to talk about. And, the Packers might have a few surprises for us. You never know if they're going to sign some more people, make a trade. You just don't know what's going to happen. Might have to have another Jair watch conversation.
I don't know. It's a good roster to break down. Like I think they're in a better spot right now, depth wise, just top of the roster wise than they were last year going into camp. So it's a fun roster to talk about and break down. And there's a lot of versatility. There's a lot of potential that we haven't seen fully tapped yet. So that makes it exciting, gives us a lot to talk about with all the possibilities about how they can line up on the O-line, where they can play all their cornerbacks inside, outside, how they can get all their safeties on the field because they're deep at safety.
Oladapo really didn't see much last year.
Right. In the one game he played in, he was really good against the Bears. And Marshawn Lloyd, we didn't see him all year. He's like adding a new player, but they raved about him. We just didn't really see him on the field because he had multiple injuries and he had appendicitis. So yeah, that's like a brand new player now. So it's going to be fun, and we're going to break it all down. And there's a lot of different possibilities and versatility and depth to talk about, and it makes for a strong roster right now.
Absolutely. And, I've seen a few comments floating the idea of trades around here and there. And I think that there's a lot of scenarios. Oh, Tim's shaking his head. He doesn't agree. I think there are several scenarios of potential trades that could happen. Not that I want them to, but I do think there are several that could.
Trading guys from the roster or bringing guys in through trade?
No, probably trading out. I think, Dobbs is a guy they could move. I think for the right offer and, the right desperate team, you might end up moving. Oh my gosh, Willis. Malik Willis. There we go. It's getting late, guys. I don't want that, but I do think that desperation from other teams could become a factor. And Jair obviously is one that has been out there on the trading block. But yeah, and even the depth at O-line, I think somebody brought it up. If you're doing well with your crew and you get a good best five and somebody needs a left tackle, Rasheed Walker can start at left tackle. You shouldn't just stash the guy. You definitely want a starter caliber backup at left tackle. That's a great thing to have. But these are trades that I think have potential to happen with the right desperation from another team. Not, again, moves that I want to happen, I think should happen, just could.
Yeah. This is another topic for another day, but you start talking about Rasheed Walker or Dobbs, then I don't think you can talk so much about the depth that you have at those positions now because you're trading guys who are starters.
Well, depending on what you get in return, but yes, you're correct. Right.
Yeah. I want to hang on to those guys. I know there's potential for them because there's other guys that may take their jobs eventually and their contracts are up. I get that, but they're good football players that can help your team this year. And, maybe the Dobbs one, let's talk, trade deadlines around Halloween. Let's see where they're at Halloween, and maybe Golden's ahead of them and maybe Wicks is ahead of them and Savion. At that point, then yeah, maybe you trade them and get a draft pick. But right now we're going into camp. No way. I'm holding on to all those guys. One or two injuries and all of a sudden, you got no depth. And especially if you're trading a starting receiver or a starting left tackle, I don't. I'm not on board with trading anybody right now.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. I just think that, again, the right offer comes along, it could bust that up a little bit. But No, maybe we'll have to get into that next week. Some potential moves that are left on the board, anything that you'd be rooting for or anything like that. Malik Willis to me is probably the one you got to leave alone. Like the backup QB seems to be a very, very important position, and the guy has shown he can come in and win games for you. So that's a tough one. I don't know how much of a price you can even put on that. But yeah, we might have to dive into that next week, get into some potential moves, things that are happening. But no, that's what we got this week. I think we went through the schedule pretty well. We might take some more time in the latter part of this off season to pick it apart a little bit, start talking about matchups. But for now, it is what it is. I like it. There's things I don't like about it. It's tough. Should be fun. Things will be a fun season. That's where I'm at with it. Think it's gonna be fun. Think it's gonna be fun.
Absolutely. I think there's some really cool matchups. Just, and don't worry about what teams are going to look, what the schedule looks like in December and January or November and December yet, because there's a long way to go. We don't know what any of those teams are going to look like at that point. So, yeah, I mean, I think any year you talk about the schedule, you can be like, yeah, I like this, I don't like that. We can come up with a million different things. It's going to play itself out. So.
We might end up with a reason to talk about that Steelers matchup specifically.
I'm sure we will.
That one could be interesting.
Yep. We didn't even talk about the Steelers matchup. That's
no, we didn't.
Many other interesting points there, other interesting matchups there are and interesting things. We didn't have to talk about that.
No, there really are. There's a lot of matchups worth talking about on the schedule as I'm looking at it. The Steelers, I know if 12 signs with them, that's going to make a whole new conversation. But if then, whatever, we'll get there. Yeah. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us on Monday night, man. This is always fun. You guys were awesome in the comments tonight, bringing some good info, some good stuff. If y'all enjoyed this episode and want to support us, spike that like button for us. Definitely give us a follow on those socials. But most importantly, head on over to the Packers Talk Network YouTube channel right now. Hit that subscribe button for us. Tag along with us every Monday night at 9:30 Central PM. We're streaming live, talking Pack and not getting into any of the other nonsense. Although maybe we'll stash a little hockey talk at the end of this as the Western Conference Finals get kicked off. And we got at least one Stars fan on this podcast. Maybe I can convert another. But no.
I'm rooting for him.
Oh, all right.
I'm rooting for him. I hope they beat the Oilers.
Okay. Hey, right on, man. We can bond under another green team here. But yeah, we'll be having some fun throughout the rest of the offseason. We're going to get through it with y'all. If you're just like thirsting for some Packers, we are too. Can't wait for this 2025 season to be here. It will be here before we know it. But until then, hang with us. Join us every Monday night. We're going to talk Pack. We're going to break down all the stuff. We're going to get into all the stuff. We're going to talk rumors. We're going to talk all of it. And eventually we'll get through every last position group this team has. You're going to know the guys that are on the practice squad. We're going to know all the names. We're going to have predictions for them. We're going to know who's going to be the MVP of the league and win Super Bowl this year. We're going to know all that. But for now, it's time for bed. It's late. So thank you all. You guys have a good night. And most importantly, go.